So here's something I didn't think I'd be talking about. The leaders of North and South Korea have basically committed to denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula and formally ending the Korean War. It's funny to talk about ending the Korean War, a war that started in 1950 and technically has never really ended. It's just there's been an armistice signed between the opposing sides, North Korea and China, the United States and South Korea, and that has basically been in place. I mean, right now there's about 35,000 or even 40,000 U.S. troops stationed in South Korea at this current moment. We have nuclear submarines all around the region, and we have U.S.-made missile weapons in South Korea, and so the war footing is real, and it's been very real since the Korean War started in 1950. So this is huge news. This is really big that the leaders of North and South Korea have come together and have jointly committed to ending this war and denuclearizing the peninsula. My initial reaction is to credit Donald Trump for the stance that he took, which has really just been extremely aggressive towards North Korea, saying all types of crazy things. I mean, we got the Fire and Fury line talking about how he's gonna, pulverize the country. What's it not seemed it was, we got a bunch of really bellicose language from Donald Trump and tough talk. I think that alarmed a lot of people. It certainly alarmed the South Koreans. It alarmed me, thinking like, oh, we're getting really close to nuclear war with a country that clearly is demonstrating that they at least have missiles, and had they at least have some nuclear weapons or some nuclear capacity. So I just saw a situation barreling out of control. But lo and behold, this happened.
Welcome back. Truly an historic meeting in Singapore this week. President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un come to an agreement to start the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
Chairman Kim has before him an opportunity like no other to be remembered as the leader who ushered in a glorious new era of security and prosperity for his people. Chairman Kim and I just signed a joint statement in which he reaffirmed his unwavering commitment to complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
And so I'm really excited about the prospects of this, but I just want to talk about some of the things that make this hard to just be a situation where North and South Korea ended the war, and so now it's done. I think one big reason is that the United States and China were military players in that war, and so the armistice that was signed that basically ended the fighting and established the DMZ was signed by South Korea, North Korea, United States, and China. And so there can technically be no formal end to the Korean War without the United States and China also signing on to it. And it's encouraging that this initiative was started by the North Korean and South Korean people, with the United States and China coming to get involved in the process after the North Koreans and South Koreans have established the lines for denuclearization and the terms for reunification, and not established the terms but have begun the talks. I think the next point is that North Korea has just spent an entire year testing nuclear weapons, clearly demonstrating that they can shoot missiles far enough to reach U.S. cities, and all of a sudden they now want to stop, and they're committed to denuclearization. Just looking at a situation that's kind of fishy, because on the one hand, North Korea is building a nuclear weapon and testing missiles over and over again, really using really threatening rhetoric, and then all of a sudden, after a few months after declaring yourself a nuclear power, saying we're interested in reunification and denuclearization. To me, it could seem like maybe the North Koreans have put a pause on testing nuclear weapons because they have all the information they need, because they've run so many tests in the last few years, and we know for sure that they definitely have some weapons. So there's a lot to still mesh out with what denuclearization would actually look like. And I think unfortunately for the Korean people, denuclearization rather than reunification is the more important strategic goal for the United States. And I think those terms are going to provide a lot of sticking points about when and how or if North Korea is going to destroy the weapons that they currently have and the facilities that build them. North Koreans being honest, for example, about the capacity that they currently have to actually build more weapons now and in the future. There's still a lot to mesh out before this could actually be something where we're seeing the end of this conflict that has lasted since 1950. Either way, I just think it's really exciting, and it's really surprising in the Donald Trump era. I mean, if Donald Trump pulls this off, he can rightly claim to have, under his belt, a significant foreign policy achievement that a lot of U.S. presidents have not been able to have. But, there's still caution in even saying that, because it's not like others haven't tried. Bill Clinton, for example, there was peace talks. There was moments in 2007 when they seemed to be moving towards closer relations and reunification and lessening the hostilities. But then the North Koreans continued to build weapons and test weapons, nuclear weapons. And so we found ourselves back where we are today. So, who knows what the future holds. If I'm being honest about the North Korean position too, they have also an interest in skillful negotiation, because the record for countries that have negotiated away their nuclear weapons and the United States pledging to not invade them or not harm them in some form, and then the United States turning around a decade or years later and overthrowing those regimes, it's not good. But we have Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein, just to name a few. And so, yeah, the record's not good. So North Korea, good luck figuring out a way that you're going to come out with a deal that is a little bit more binding in terms of avoiding aggression against your country.